Well, Jennifer, I want to thank you for offering to do a video testimony for us.
Of course.
It's going to help a lot of other women and men too, but particularly women your age, I imagine.
Yes.
You came here, I think July?
Yes, July 15th.
July 15th.
So 7 weeks ago.
7 weeks ago. And at that time you said you had, well, why don't you just tell me all your symptoms?
Okay, so I had fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue.
How bad was your fatigue?
Some days I couldn't get out of bed. And it was hard because people would look at you and say, "You look fine."
Yeah.
But, or it would either, be the first in the morning, and sometimes you would be at you'd be somewhere doing something, and then it would just hit all of a sudden. And it would just shut down.
And you have a young man, Cooper?
I do. I have a 4-year-old.
4-year-old to take care of. That would be really difficult.
So thankfully I have family close by, because there was a lot of times, if my husband's working, I had to stop working.
Did you actually have to have your mother or somebody help you because the fatigue was so bad?
The fatigue was so bad.
And the pain.
The pain is so, walking upstairs, I would have to pause. And I'm just turned 36. This all started when I was 33 and a half.
Well, when it started, tell me a little bit about that. Was
Okay.
it insidious or did it happen immediately? What?
So I was clearing some of my yard.
Back up for a minute. You live in where?
I live in Charlottesville, Virginia.
Okay.
Very tick-infested area.
Well,
So,
that's important to bring out. They say North Carolina, Virginia, but it's everywhere.
It's everywhere, yes.
Charlottesville, I grew up near there. That's a lot of woods. So you're out on a wooded area, several acres or something?
Well, no, it's a small lot, but the part that I cleared hadn't been cleared in years.
I'm just trying to picture you on the Axeman show, clearing the land. And so.
Yeah, nothing that exciting. So we were out there clearing, and then about 3 days later, I started getting shortness of breath. That was my first symptom.
Wow.
And so I thought, I was at the gym, and I thought, this is weird. I've never had shortness of breath. Then over the weekend, it just got progressively worse, Then on Monday, I went to my doctor, and she said, oh, you probably have some sort of asthma or seasonal allergies.
Right.
And I just thought, and I said, and I told her, I was clearing my yard, and she said, no, it's probably just seasonal allergies.
So when you said clearing the yard to her,
I told her.
Did you bring up Lyme?
So not at that point.
I wouldn't think you would have.
No,
okay.
Did not bring up Lyme, but I just said, this is what I've been doing,
So you did bring up the correlation time-wise, a chronological correlation.
Yes.
I'm out clearing the land.
Right.
I've never had this shortness of breath before. I've had the flu before.
Right.
I've been sick before, but not this short of breath.
Not the short of breath.
So you went through all that, I would imagine.
So, and I did. And so I said all that, and then she said, well, let's give you some steroid inhalers. So I thought, okay,
Sure.
she's my doctor,
Right.
I'll give it a try. So I was using them, and it didn't work.
Okay.
And so it just kept getting worse and worse. And then by the following week, I was out. It was done. I had flu-like symptoms, fever. I couldn't move, and my mom came over because I was taking care of my son, and she said, "We have to go to the emergency
Cooper
room."
was only 2 then.
Yes, he was 2.
So you definitely had to have
Oh yes.
the ability to get up
Right.
and do everything for him.
Right. So we're near, a hospital, UVA.
Right.
So I went there.
UVA is considered one of the top 10 medical centers in the country.
Right. I gave him the whole thing. This is what happened. I was clearing my yard. Now I have shortness of breath. Now I feel flu-like. I can't move. My body aches.
Now this professor at UVA, was he an internist,
No, he was
infectious
the head.
disease? The chief of a department? Okay.
So, because my dad's mom had passed away from emphysema, so that anything with lungs, it makes him nervous.
Okay,
so
it was like
he
chief
wanted
of
me to
pulmonary
go,
or whatever.
yes.
Okay, gotcha.
So we went, and he just said, and he started running things, running
Pulmonary function test.
Which were slightly below, but
Right.
So it's like, well, I don't understand why you feel this sick.
Right.
You shouldn't feel this sick.
So he was puzzled.
Okay. He was puzzled. Yes.
Probably thought it was a virus of some type.
Right. So then
That's
they put
classic.
me on steroids.
Okay.
Because the lungs were just getting worse. I couldn't breathe. I felt like constantly short of breath.
Now I want to make something clear for the folks that are going to watch this. The other women in the country that you're going to help, they put you on steroids because if you have excessive inflammation and excessive histamine, it causes bronchospasm. But the steroids didn't help from the family doctor and nor from the pulmonology professor because the mechanism would have been different. And potentially babesia, which I may get to in a moment, but did the steroids the second time help you?
No, they gave me inhaled and pill form. They did nothing.
If you
They
remember,
cause weight gain.
my first medical life was anesthesiology / ICU, and so my whole life was about the heart and lungs. And so just versus flippantly assuming steroids will help, first of all, if the pulmonary function test, which I used to analyze thousands of them, doesn't show obstructive disease where you can't get it out, the steroids aren't going to help. Your shortness of breath would not have been inability to move the air. What you would have had would have been Babesia, which is a bug that comes from ticks as well, that blows up the red cells to the point where they're too large to get through the pipe. So here's the air sac, okay, the alveoli, and here's the capillary coming by with the red cell. The red cell has to go through the pipe. It has to come up against the alveoli so the oxygen can come over. But if your red blood cells are blown up by the Babesia, it's a bug that lives inside the red cells. It's a first cousin to malaria, if you will. Then the red cell can't get through the pipe. So then you have this air hunger, because if the red cell can't go by the air sac, and it's not all of the air sacs and every one of the capillaries, or you would be blue, what I call macrohypoxia. What you're having is microhypoxia, inability to get the oxygen over to the red cells, so the red cell can then carry it out to the tissue. And so was it more of a can't get the breath?
Can't get the breath.
Yeah, that's air. We call it air hunger. You met women here from all over the world, mostly Canada and America. They have so many similar stories. And some of them have been through 14 years. So you're lucky.
I feel lucky. Only 2, but
you know, you're such a great person to interview because you just pick it up right away. Of course, your brain works now.
My brain is on.
Which brings us back to the other symptoms. You said you had severe brain fog.
Severe brain fog.
I mean, how bad was it? You walk from this room to the next room,
well,
and you're like, what did I come in here for?
I would be driving somewhere and think, where was I driving?
That's the first thing you would notice without the shortness of breath, brain-wise. It's the first thing you notice.
And I just thought, oh, I just don't feel good. Maybe that's why. I just can't, I'm just feel so sick because my body just hurts.
We conjure up all kinds of ideas, don't we?
You just sort of go through the motions and think, okay, and I'm going to all these doctors. You know, I went, they thought, okay, maybe you have MS, maybe you have lupus. So I've had so many MRIs, and I kept saying to this doctor, because once I'd been sick, and then the final sort of thing for me is when I went to the hospital in an ambulance for just such a severe migraine.
In the brain, picture the capillaries, and the red cells are getting stuck. Not in the entire brain, or you'd be blue and you'd be brain dead, but enough of them that you have what I call microhypoxia in the brain. Lack of oxygen, and then when you have lack of oxygen, you develop a metabolic acidosis. And that causes the arteries to dilate, and that's that pounding headache.
I mean, I've never experienced anything. Like,
isn't that amazing?
I've had headaches in the past, but this was
This is a severe headache,
Like, I couldn't get up. They had to carry me down the stairs. I mean, it was totally
debilitating. I've seen people, I've had patients that when they came in with that, they would actually get up and go bang their head against the wall, and they would say at home, I'll bang my head with a phone. That's how bad the headache is. I mean, I'm talking about reasonable people, not you know, crazy people. But I want you to understand that, and for the folks who are going to watch this, the same mechanism, lack of getting the red blood cells through to get the oxygen, and then they can't, even if they do get through and get the oxygen, they can't deliver it to the cells. And what it gives people all the time are the headaches. And headaches and air hunger should be considered Babesia until it's ruled out.
After a while, you start, okay, well, I'm going to have to diagnose myself. They keep saying, well, I don't know.
How many women did you meet here who told you they diagnosed themselves?
So many. I mean,
it's amazing to me.
It's amazing. And so I kept saying to my doctor, I think I have Lyme disease. Like, when you look at these, or maybe do I have mold? Like, those are the two things, like the Lyme. I said, I have so many of these symptoms. We've tested you. And I, unfortunately at the time, was not educated on Lyme. I thought, oh, they did the Western blot and it's negative, so I don't have Lyme. I didn't know that if my immune system was so bad that the CD57, it wouldn't even register.
Here's the bigger thing on that.
Okay.
And I want to show folks, this is biofilm for the camera. Okay, these are red blood cells on these special blood smears. This is all biofilm. Look at that.
That's what mine looked like.
And the scientist, probably the top guy in the country, is at MSU. And Dr. McDonald, who was at University of New Haven, they focus on biofilm. See that? They say there are now 4 layers. The scientists, the microbiologists, who really focus on this, not MDs, say there are 4 layers of this biofilm. It's really thick, like super glue. Well, when your Lyme spirochete is trapped in that, and to give you a better example of what that looks like, it's really fascinating science. I never thought I'd be doing pathology along with all the other things I've learned to do, but Kevin's a perfect one. See this?
Right.
This is the kid we talked about that was misdiagnosed by John Hopkins psychiatrist as bipolar for 5 years. You remember that story? He's on the Lyme page. See this guy?
Yes.
According to Dr. Alan McDonald at Yale, that is a Lyme spirochete in the biofilm. Here's the key. These bugs spin this biofilm. I don't know if that's showing up on the video, Pastor.
It is.
But if it's not, we'll get rid of this deal. All right, so, all right. You weren't really prepared for this, but see, there's another one.
Right.
This is one out in the bloodstream. These are all black red blood cells, which may not show on the video. That's a Lyme spirochete, Notice it's within this biofilm.
Right.
Your antibodies can't get to it.
Right.
That's why these bugs spin this web of biofilm. So is the antibody test going to be negative if it can't get to the spirochete?
Right.
And the reason I got into all this, as you probably read on my website, my daughter at 13, she went from being the 13-year-old girl who could do more pull-ups, more push-ups, throw the football farther than any guy in her class, to being bedridden. Got sick at first, then 2 years of top LLMDs. At least they were Lyme literate and knowing there's a lot of it out there. But using antibiotics for 2 years, she was on 6 antibiotics a day. Got sicker every month to the point by the 2nd year she couldn't get from the bedroom to the kitchen. Much like Kamea when she came. You saw her come out of her wheelchair, the 14-year-old Canada. But the thing is, the antibiotics were not getting in here.
Right.
All they do is seep through the layers enough to make these bugs more resistant.
Right.
And that's why we designed this program with my wife's help. She's the one who forced me, because I trained traditional as well. And an intensive care guy, you're like, oh really, you're going to do this weird natural stuff? But we designed our protocol to be able to bust through that, and then that test will be positive. And many people who come here, if for kicks we repeat that Lyme test, it was negative 18 times at all these various physicians they visited. When we bust that open, these guys pop out here, then the antibodies get to them, suddenly it's positive.
Right.
And so 58% false negatives with the antibody testing. Those doctors say if you're over 100, you don't have Lyme.
Right.
I espoused what they espoused until about a year ago. As I continued to think about this, those toxins are also trapped in the biofilm. And many women come here, and men, we have a lot more females as you see. Men just get sick and don't do anything about it, right? We're just ignorant animals, unless the wife makes us go. But when we pop the biofilm, a lot of patients who have a really high CD57, oh, you can't have Lyme. Guess what? They'll drop from 150 to 20 if there's a lot of toxins in there.
Right.
But this explains why it's underdiagnosed and so much. But you went through this with the pulmonologist. After you didn't respond to the steroids, I have to ask you, the shortness of breath did not respond to the steroids from the pulmonary professor at one of the best medical centers in America.
Yes.
What was his answer to shortness of breath at that point?
Didn't know, or maybe you're just, it's something you haven't experienced before, so maybe you're feeling very exaggerated about it.
This is a beautiful interview, Pastor, because here's the deal. So many women here are told it's all in your head, it's psychological. God forbid you're only 36. God forbid you were 45. Watch your hormonal changes.
Right.
And you know, I've heard this from thousands of women. Females get dismissed more than men with this. Once they can't find it, they'll go to it is insulting. And I've had thousands of women say how insulted they were, just basically dismissed. I've seen it ruin marriages.
I kept saying, are you sure it's not Lyme? Stop asking about it, you don't have it.
Yeah.
And then the mold, and then I thought, well, maybe it's mold. I was outside, it was sort of a moldy-ish type, wetter. I thought, maybe no symptoms of mold.
Right.
And I thought, okay, I'm starting to lose it here. I mean, I'm just getting
sicker.
sicker,
and you did learn
sicker,
here
sicker.
that you have, through our DNA testing, that you have genetics that you cannot make antibodies to the gases, the toxic gases.
Right.
We say mold toxins. I think sometimes we have to explain the toxic gases created by molds, but they're not trapped outside. Now you can, if you're working out there, especially if you're digging, you can suck in mold spores from the soil,
Right.
but you never have containment of gases outside.
Right.
Now in your case, we ended up also popping a lot of mold toxins out of your biofilm,
Right.
the black mold toxin, which means you have exposure, and the black mold toxin, through reading German research I've learned, shuts down the immune system so that you would have gotten, and based on the levels we measured, and of course you saw, we measure about 600 mathematical biomarkers from every body system, and we correlate all those things, and you learned that your immune system wasn't as strong as it should be, and that toxin was one of the reasons. So it may be why working outside and getting a tick bite.
And then we found it in my house while I was here.
And you found a black mold in your house right here, and you already gotten that taken care of, I hope.
Yes.
Because that's a problem. Brain fog is gone.
Gone.
Your chronic fatigue is gone.
Gone.
You had total body pain, fibromyalgia, it's gone.
Yes.
You had other
Joint
symptoms,
pain,
joint pain, severe
joint
joint pain.
So especially my hips.
In 7 weeks, you're telling me all these things are going.
I mean, it's incredible, and I think even from the time when I first got here, because I'd seen so many doctors, and I finally,
How many doctors had you seen?
Oh gosh, I mean, I don't even.
Well, first, let's go back. How many university professors did you see?
Probably 6,
7. And that's
at UVA. But then I also saw some at Martha Jefferson.
Okay.
But then finally, a local.
What did the neurologist at UVA say?
He actually sort of laughed, which was.
You don't have to say his name.
No.
Just
but he said, oh, "I just don't know what's wrong with you. This is so strange." I wrote that. It's like, thank you. That just makes me feel so much better.
So that was the end of that consult. Okay.
Right, and so I said, okay, well.
Did he order an MRI of your brain?
He did.
Okay,
MRI,
and it was negative.
It was negative.
Okay.
And so, because they were like, he's like, well, maybe you just have MS.
The radiologist
Right.
will not call it MS unless he
Right.
sees white spots.
Right.
Once the myelin is totally destroyed, you don't have this problem for about, 6 months by the time you see a neurologist, maybe less. You would not have had the white spots, which is pure destruction of the myelin on the brain MRI. But what you would have had is inflammation. And your MRI probably showed what radiologists call increased T2 inflammation. They don't know it's pre-MS. Those Lyme toxins and the mold toxins infiltrate this myelin, and when they do, they change the electromagnetic field around the nerve, and the electricity slows down. And the first region that's affected, the most sensitive brain region to this slowing of a voltage from these toxins, is the prefrontal cortex, which is the executive center of the brain, but in the lateral prefrontal cortex, just picture your temples, it's where your 4-second memory is.
Right.
So this starts shutting down, and you walk from this room, from your kitchen to your family room, gosh, see that's 3-second memory. That's not long-term memory. That's not even 4-day memory, which is further back. But when this 4-second memory shuts down, right here, you can't process. It's also called processing or learning memory. So your husband or somebody's talking to you, or if you were at work, you're a bright woman, but I don't care if you have 180 genius IQ, when this region shut down from toxicity, you can't process, so you can't remember what they said, and you can't analyze. And those are probably the first brain symptoms you noticed, I would assume.
I started texting myself. I did finally get to see a Lyme literate doctor in New York that finally said.
So you left Virginia,
right? But
went
he
to New
said
York.
yes. But then he said, of course, according to the CDC, you don't
Right.
have Lyme, but according to the Lyme community, you do have Lyme. So he started me on a course of antibiotics, and I guess the piece of the puzzle that he failed to mention is that I have the genetics where I can't clear the toxins. I have the double gene.
You have the double gene, some call it the dreaded gene. You have no antibodies to grab the Lyme toxin or the mold toxin.
Right.
Supposedly 25% of Americans have that gene. It's 99% of my practice.
It's incredible. I mean, and I have to say, when I came down here, I scheduled this appointment and I said, I'm coming here for Lyme.
Right.
And then I got here, and before I got here, you do a ton of testing, and I thought, somehow I knew, like, he's doing more testing than I've seen and looking at more pieces of the puzzle, and so I've had a good feeling. No one had ever looked at my hormones.
Right.
And I think even getting the hormone puzzle started.
What happens? Let me explain one more thing that I figured out here. I wrote a chapter for Suzanne Summers for a book of hers where I was explaining the deeper concept that I only figured out in 2008 and 9. So when this myelin is inflamed from the bug toxins and the mold toxins and pesticides, all these fatty lipophilic toxins, and the electricity slows down, we have this down regulation of electricity throughout the brain. You notice the most here, but it's everywhere. Even in your reward center, you know, I've treated over 8,000 people with brain disorders. When the electricity goes down below normal in this reward center, you get more depression. I'm sure depression was part of this picture as well, but you think you're depressed just because of what's going on.
Right.
But there's also an electrical down regulation here. But the bigger thing is, on the hormones, is that when the electricity slows in the brain, the hypothalamus that turns on your pituitary doesn't turn on the pituitary as well. Then all these organs, the thyroid, the adrenals, the ovaries, don't get the stimulation from the pituitary. And so then you may have met some women here who are in their 20s, 30s, already in menopause from this. And gynecologists will look at the uterus, they'll scope the ovaries. They forget what we all learned the first year of medical school. The brain turns on the hormones that turn on the ovaries. And the reason they're in menopause is because the ovaries are fine, but there's no stimulation. But here's the key. When the estrogen falls below 80 pgs per ml, in you women, the serotonin receptor closes. I teach this in meetings. Then, when the serotonin can't get on the receptor, your brain moves from happy brain. These two brain regions overheat, and you get more depression, negative, moody, irritable. Did you develop all this? Hopelessness? You're laughing too hard. Easily offended. I wish your husband were here to say, oh yeah. They always behind the page going, oh yeah. And you also develop this overactivity out of this anterior cingulate gyrus, and that gives you worry, 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 worry. So then you think, geez, I'm worried. I used to be a happy-go-lucky person. All the worry, argumentative, your husband should be here for that one, and hyper-focus on the negative. So that makes the brain worse. But also, when these regions are overactive, particularly this deep limbic system or emotional center, you become more sensitive to pain. So it's just total down regulation. But so the hormones activate. The other thing I see is the women, particularly who come here, no one looks at their testosterone.
No.
And yours was probably in the basement.
Basement.
Many times, LabCorp and Quest will report on you guys, it's less than what they can measure. Well, testosterone is what activates the killer cells.
I had no idea.
Ultimately, as we get the toxins and the bugs out of your brain, then the pituitary kicks back up where it should be, and it turns on your thyroid and the adrenals, etc. Your severe chronic fatigue, you said you some days couldn't get out of bed. Everybody talks about adrenal fatigue, but many of the females that come here are in a suitcase full of supplements from their 8 different wellness centers that don't work because the adrenals are fine. The adrenal food in their supplements doesn't work. Were you put on those things by somebody?
No, unfortunately I had over a year's worth of antibiotics. So that just made
Well, that just made everything worse.
Worse.
So,
very sick.
But you have to fix the brain, and that's what really differentiates us. You have to fix the brain. Furthermore, the scientists, the neuroimmunologists are all suggesting now, with that very clearly saying, that the immune system is simply the tail end of the nervous system, the neurological system. Well, what runs the neurological system? The brain. Is top-down management, isn't it? And the brain takes the biggest hit. By the way, do you remember me saying in a workshop that the Japanese just proved with specialized brain scans that the Lyme bug congregates in the prefrontal cortex? And once that executive center is shut down, nothing works. You know, it's just, we've got to get the medical community on top of this. But where we start with you and all the other people that do these videos
Spread the word.
Is spreading the word. And because you know what, I always joke, it's women in America who started MAD, not men, but you know, whatever movement there is to bring awareness, it's usually females. And so, you know, you're bright, you know, you've suffered from this 2 years, maybe you'll go back there and get involved somehow and spread the word some. We do this 90% natural. Your immune system was killing more bugs without antibiotics after a week or two here than it was before. Is that not a true statement?
Yes.
You could tell, couldn't you?
Oh yes.
Did you have a bigger Hertzheimer reaction? Even before we moved into our kill protocol, you probably started killing on your own.
Yes, and it was interesting when we did the kills, where I would feel the pressure and weirdness is right in here, always. It was just like...
And isn't it interesting that the Japanese just, about the last 9 months or so, put out this PET scan study proving that the Lyme is hanging out here more than anywhere else. And all these symptoms people have, they're for a reason.
So true. I mean, all of my symptoms have gone. I mean, it's a miracle.
Well,
it really is. And I'm so very appreciative.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And we're just glad to have you here. And your young man over there. You got to get Cooper in this video. Cooper.
Hey, Cooper.
He's busy.
He's busy. Wait. You ready?
Hey, Cooper. Are you happy to have Mommy? Mommy's got more energy?
Mm-hmm.
Is it fun to have your mommy back? No, he's so cute.